Wow, the city is so bright!
It is. It's magical at night.
It feels so cozy.
Yeah!
In today's story, we witness the exact moment a man's perfectly controlled world crumbles beneath his Italian leather shoes. It wasn't a great start at the marble lobby of Fraser Industries, Manhattan. Every surface polished to mirror perfection. Nathaniel Fraser, 42, billionaire CEO, stands reviewing quarterly projections on his tablet. The man who anticipates everything, predicts markets, controls billions. Security flanking him. Employees scurrying past. Then it happens. Two little hands grab his. Two identical boys with curly hair and serious faces look up at him. "Hello, Dad," says one. "We found you." Dad? A word he's never been called before. A title he never expected. How would you react if your biggest life surprise ambushed you in the most public place possible? What if your past suddenly grabbed your hand in front of everyone who respects you? Before the tea spills, I made a deal with myself that if we hit our next subscriber goal, my dog gets a massive steak dinner. Help a pup out and click subscribe. Costs nothing and makes this whole journey worth it. Sound off in the comments with where you are watching from. Now sit back and enjoy this story of how two determined little boys brought a corporate titan to his knees. Nathaniel felt the tablet slipping from his grasp. He gripped it tighter, his knuckles going white. The busy lobby seemed to go quiet around him. "Excuse me?" he managed, looking down at the boys. Identical twins with those serious expressions that seemed too adult for their small faces. "We've been looking for you," the second boy said. "Mom said you work in the big building with the tree in the lobby. She has your picture." Nathaniel glanced at the massive Japanese maple in the center atrium, his personal touch in the otherwise stark corporate space. He looked between them, utterly bewildered. "I think you have the wrong person." "No, you're Nathaniel Fraser," the first boy said confidently. "I'm James. This is my brother Michael. We're your sons." A security guard at the reception desk was watching now, clearly uncertain whether to intervene. Several employees slowed their pace, pretending not to stare. "How did you get in here?" Nathaniel asked, finding his voice. "We came with the school group," Michael explained, pointing to a cluster of children and teachers across the lobby. "We're supposed to be learning about architecture, but we really came to find you." James reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded photo. "See? That's you." It was indeed him. A candid shot from some charity gala 3 years ago. He was laughing at something off camera, looking more relaxed than he typically allowed himself to be in public. "Who is your mother?" Nathaniel asked quietly, though a name was already forming in his mind. "Audrey Winters." They answered in unison. Audrey. The name alone sent him back 7 years. Dark hair, quick wit, brilliant mind. The research scientist who'd worked briefly at Fraser's R&D division before leaving unexpectedly. The woman he'd spent one perfect weekend with before returning to the relentless pace of building his empire. "She left before we were born," James continued. "She said you were busy building important things. And now, we're old enough to meet you," Michael added. "We just wanted to know what you're like." Nathaniel became aware of his assistant, Diana, approaching rapidly from the elevator bank, concern etched on her face. "Sir, your 2 o'clock is waiting upstairs. Is everything all right?" Diana's eyes darted to the boys, then back to him. Before he could answer, a woman's voice cut through the lobby. "James." "Michael." Nathaniel looked up to see her hurrying toward them. Audrey Winters, looking both exactly the same and completely different. Her dark hair was shorter now, framing a face that showed both panic and mortification as she approached. "I am so sorry," she said, not quite meeting Nathaniel's eyes as she reached for the boys. "They were supposed to stay with their group. They must have—" She stopped, finally looking directly at him. "Nathaniel." "Audrey." The boys stood between them, looking back and forth with expressions that mixed triumph and uncertainty. "We found Dad," James announced, looking entirely too pleased with himself. Audrey closed her eyes briefly. "I can see that." Diana cleared her throat, professional to the core despite the bizarre situation unfolding. "Sir, the Meridian Pharmaceuticals team is upstairs. The $300 million deal." "Reschedule it," Nathaniel said, his eyes never leaving Audrey's face. "Family emergency." "But sir, they've flown in from Singapore. The board is expecting." "I said reschedule it." His voice was quiet but left no room for argument. Diana nodded and retreated, already pulling out her phone. "You don't need to do that," Audrey said quickly. "We're leaving. Boys, apologize to Mr. Fraser for interrupting his day." "But he's our dad," Michael protested. "We just found him." If you've ever had a moment when your entire world shifted in an instant, hit that like button. Because Nathaniel Fraser, who had contingency plans for market crashes and corporate takeovers, had absolutely no protocol for this. He made a decision then, one that would alter the trajectory of his carefully ordered life. "Actually," he said, "I'd like to talk. All of us. There's a cafe on the mezzanine. Private." Audrey hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine. 10 minutes. I need to tell the teachers the boys are with me." As she walked away to speak with the school group, Nathaniel looked down at the twins who were still holding his hands. "Are we in trouble?" James asked. "With me? No," Nathaniel replied honestly. "With your mom? Probably." "It was worth it," Michael said with absolute certainty. "We've been planning this for weeks." Nathaniel studied their faces, his own eyes looking back at him. Audrey's nose and chin. How had he not known? How could he have missed this? The cafe on the mezzanine level was empty at this hour. Nathaniel ordered hot chocolates for the boys and coffee for the adults. They sat at a corner table, the twins side by side, Audrey and Nathaniel facing each other. "How old are you?" Nathaniel asked the boys. 6. They answered together. 6 years and 4 months, James specified. "And 2 days, Michael added. Nathaniel did the math quickly. "You left Fraser Industries 7 years ago." Audrey nodded, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. "I found out I was pregnant about 3 weeks after I started working here. And you didn't tell me." It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "No." "Why?" The boys were watching this exchange with intense interest, heads swiveling between the adults like spectators at a tennis match. "This isn't the place for that conversation," Audrey said quietly. Nathaniel leaned forward. "I think I deserve some kind of explanation, Audrey. You worked in my company for almost 6 months. We saw each other nearly every day. We had one weekend together," she corrected. "One weekend when you took a break from being CEO. Then Monday came, and you were back to 80-hour weeks and changing the world." She glanced at the boys. "Can we not do this now?" James reached into his pocket and pulled out a small worn baseball card. "Do you like baseball? Mom says you used to play in college." The abrupt change of subject caught Nathaniel off guard. "I did. Pitcher." "We play too," Michael said eagerly. "I'm a catcher. James is better at batting." "They're in Little League," Audrey explained, relief evident in her voice at the safer topic. "Mom comes to all our games," James added. "Who else?" Nathaniel asked, the question emerging before he could stop it. "Who else comes to your games?" "Grandma sometimes," Michael said, "and Mom's friend Kelly." Not your mother's husband or boyfriend." Audrey's eyes flashed. "No, there's no one else." The implied question hung in the air. Why hadn't she found someone else to help raise his sons? "Where do you live?" Nathaniel asked. "Brooklyn," Audrey replied. "I have a research position at Memorial Hospital now. The boys go to Westside Academy." "It's a good school," James offered. "But they give too much homework." Despite everything, Nathaniel found himself smiling. "I used to think that too." Meanwhile, on the executive floor of Fraser Industries, Chaos was unfolding. Marcus Lee, the company's COO, stared at Diana in disbelief. He canceled the Meridian meeting? For what? Family emergency, Diana said. That's all he told me. What family? Nate doesn't have family. His parents are gone, no siblings, never married. Did he explain anything? Diana hesitated. There were children in the lobby, twin boys, and a woman he seemed to know. Marcus frowned. That doesn't make any sense. Call security, get the footage. Something's wrong. Back at the cafe, Michael was watching Nathaniel carefully. Mom says we're smart like you. Nathaniel glanced at Audrey, who was studying her coffee with intense focus. Your mom is much smarter than I am, he said truthfully. She was one of the brightest researchers we ever had at Fraser. Then why did she leave? James asked bluntly. Audrey looked up sharply. James. Because she had to take care of you two, Nathaniel answered, surprising himself with how easily the response came. And that was more important than any job. Silence fell over the table. The boys exchanged one of those mysterious looks that only twins seemed capable of, an entire conversation without words. It's getting late, Audrey finally said. We should go. The boys have homework, and I'm sure you have meetings to get back to. Actually, I don't, Nathaniel said. I meant what I told my assistant. My schedule is clear. Nathaniel, let me drive you home, he said. Please. We have more to talk about. Audrey hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but just a ride home. The boys high-fived each other quietly under the table. In the sleek black town car, Michael and James kept up a steady stream of chatter, telling Nathaniel about their school, their friends, their favorite video games. Audrey sat silent beside him, looking out the window as Manhattan gave way to Brooklyn. That's our building, James announced, as they pulled up to a well-maintained brownstone on a tree-lined street. You can just drop us, Audrey began. Mom, Michael interrupted with dramatic emphasis. Dad should come up. He hasn't seen our room yet. Nathaniel held his breath. It was the second time one of the boys had called him Dad, and the word still felt surreal. Audrey looked at her son's hopeful faces and sighed. Fine, just for a little while. The apartment was on the 3rd floor, a spacious 3-bedroom with large windows and walls painted in warm, cheerful colors. Toys were neatly organized on shelves, books were stacked on nearly every surface, and framed photographs covered one wall. The boys as infants, as toddlers, at the beach, on bicycles. A timeline of moments Nathaniel had missed. Can we show him our room? James asked. Go ahead, Audrey said. I'll make some tea. The boys led Nathaniel down a hallway to a bedroom with bunk beds and walls covered with solar system decals. A telescope stood by the window. Mom got us that for Christmas, Michael explained. We can see stars from here, but it works better when we go to the park. You like space? Nathaniel asked. James nodded enthusiastically. I want to be an astronaut, or maybe design rockets. I want to be a doctor, Michael said, or a baseball player. I haven't decided. Nathaniel spotted a framed photo on their bookshelf, the same one James had shown him in the lobby. Him at that charity gala, laughing. Where did you get this picture? He asked. Mom has it on her phone, James said. We asked her to print it for us. He has others too, Michael added. But she doesn't know we know about those. Before Nathaniel could process that, Audrey called from the kitchen. Boys, homework time, go get your backpacks ready. They groaned in unison, but obediently headed out. James paused at the door. Are you going to stay? He asked Nathaniel. The question contained worlds of meaning. Nathaniel answered carefully. I'm going to talk with your mom, and then we'll see what happens next. James seemed to accept this, nodding before following his brother. In the kitchen, Audrey was pouring hot water into mugs. Her hands were steady, but Nathaniel could see tension in the set of her shoulders. "You have a lovely home," he said. "Thank you." She handed him a mug. "It's taken time to get it this way." "Audrey." "Don't," she interrupted. "Don't say you would have helped if you'd known. It doesn't matter now." "It matters to me," Nathaniel said quietly. "Why didn't you tell me?" She leaned against the counter, finally meeting his eyes directly. "You know why. I saw how you lived, how you worked. 70, 80 hours a week. Building your company was everything to you. That didn't mean I wouldn't have stepped up." "Maybe you would have," Audrey conceded. "You would have written checks, set up trust funds, visited when you remembered. But that's not what I wanted for them." She took a breath. "Or for myself. What did you want?" "Someone who would put us first," she said simply. "And that wasn't you, Nathaniel. Not then." He couldn't argue with her assessment. 6 years ago, he'd been obsessed with growing Fraser Industries, with proving himself to the board, to his investors, to the memory of his father who'd never thought he'd amount to much. "I would have tried," he said finally. "Maybe," she sighed. "But I didn't want to risk it. I'd seen what happened when career-obsessed men tried to be weekend fathers. My own father managed it for about 3 years before he stopped showing up altogether." Nathaniel was quiet for a moment, absorbing this. "The boys seem remarkable." A genuine smile transformed Audrey's face. "They are. Completely different personalities, but inseparable. James is the planner, always 3 steps ahead. Michael jumps first and figures things out on the way down." "They planned this whole meeting, didn't they?" Audrey nodded, running a hand through her hair. "Apparently they've been researching you for weeks. They knew your company had that school architecture program. They specifically asked their teacher to sign them up." "Smart," Nathaniel said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "Too smart sometimes." She looked toward the living room where the boys were pretending to organize their backpacks while obviously eavesdropping. "All right, you two. Actual homework now. Go to your room." With dramatic sighs, they retreated down the hallway. Once they were alone, Nathaniel set down his mug. "What happens now, Audrey?" "Nothing has to change," she said. "They just wanted to meet you. Curiosity satisfied. And if I don't want nothing to change? If I want to be part of their lives?" Audrey studied him. "Is that what you want? Really? Because they're not a novelty, Nathaniel. They're not a project you can dip in and out of when it's convenient. They need consistency." "I know that." "Do you? Because your life isn't set up for children. You travel constantly. You work insane hours. I can change those things," he interrupted. Audrey laughed softly. "Just like that? You've spent 15 years building Fraser Industries into what it is. You're going to suddenly start delegating and taking weekends off? If that's what it takes." She regarded him skeptically. "Why? You don't even know them." "They're my sons," Nathaniel said simply. "And I want the chance to know them. If you've ever had to choose between the life you planned and the one that suddenly appeared before you, hit that like button. Sometimes the most important crossroads don't come with warning signs." Audrey was quiet for a long moment. "I need to think about this. It's not just about what you want, or even what they think they want right now. It's about what's best for them long term." "I understand." Nathaniel hesitated, then reached into his pocket for his wallet. He pulled out a business card and wrote a number on the back. "This is my personal cell. Call me when you've thought about it." She took the card, her fingers brushing his. "I will." As Nathaniel prepared to leave, the boys reappeared from their room. "Are you going?" Michael asked, disappointment clear in his voice. "For now," Nathaniel replied, kneeling to their level. "But I'd like to see you again soon, if that's okay with your mom." They looked to Audrey, who nodded reluctantly. "Maybe this weekend," she said. "The boys have a baseball game on Saturday. You could come." The twins' faces lit up. "Will you?" James asked eagerly. Nathaniel looked at their hopeful expressions, then at Audrey's cautious one. "I wouldn't miss it," he promised. That night, back in his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Nathaniel couldn't focus. The quarterly projections, the Meridian Pharmaceuticals deal, the upcoming board meeting, all of it seemed distant and unimportant compared to what had happened today. He had sons. 6-year-old sons who had his eyes and Audrey's determination. Sons who played baseball and studied the stars and had orchestrated an elaborate plan just to meet him. His phone rang. His COO, probably calling about the rescheduled meeting. "Fraser," he answered. "What the hell happened today?" Marcus Lee's voice was concerned rather than angry. "Diana said something about a family emergency. Are you all right?" Nathaniel walked to his window, looking out at the city lights. "Found out I have children," he said. "Twin boys." Silence on the line then. "Come again?" "Their mother worked for us briefly, years ago. Audrey Winters, in the R&D department. The brilliant one who quit suddenly," Marcus recalled. "She never said why. She was pregnant. With my sons." "Jesus, Nate." Marcus paused. "Are you sure they're yours?" "Yes." He had no doubt. One look at their faces had been enough. "How did this happen?" Marcus asked. "I mean, I know how it happened, but—" 7 years ago, Nathaniel said, the memories flooding back. "Remember that biomedical conference in Boston? When we were still trying to get the stem cell research funding?" "Vaguely." "You disappeared for a weekend. I was with her. It was, I don't know, something different. Then we came back to New York, and I got pulled into the Hong Kong crisis. By the time I came up for air 2 months later, she was gone." "And she never told you about the pregnancy?" "No." The word felt heavy, laden with lost time. "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked. Nathaniel watched a helicopter's lights blink across the night sky. "I'm going to their baseball game on Saturday." "Their baseball game," Marcus repeated slowly. "You're going to skip the Singapore investors meeting for a Little League game?" "Yes." "Nate, that's a $500 million investment we've been chasing for months. Reschedule it. Send Patterson. He knows the portfolio better than I do anyway." "This isn't like you," Marcus said cautiously. "Are you sure you're thinking clearly?" Nathaniel turned away from the window. "No, I'm not. But I do know that I've missed 6 years of their lives already. I'm not missing another day I don't have to." After hanging up, Nathaniel did something he hadn't done in years. He opened a browser and started searching without any business purpose. Child development, parenting twins, baseball rules for 6-year-olds. Around 2 a.m., he found himself staring at an old photo on his phone, one he'd almost forgotten taking. Audrey at sunrise on a Boston hotel balcony, laughing as the wind whipped her hair across her face. He'd captured the moment without her knowing, then never looked at it again. The weekend had been an anomaly in his carefully structured life. A spontaneous detour when he'd slipped away from the conference, leaving his security detail behind. They'd spent 48 hours pretending to be normal people, walking the Freedom Trail, eating at small restaurants, staying up all night talking about everything except work. Then Monday came, and he became Nathaniel Fraser, CEO again. And she became Dr. Winters, research scientist. The connection they'd found disappeared under spreadsheets and lab reports, or so he'd thought. Saturday morning arrived with uncharacteristic anxiety. Nathaniel, who routinely made decisions involving billions of dollars, spent 40 minutes deciding what to wear to a children's baseball game. Too formal would make him stand out. Too casual might seem like he wasn't taking it seriously enough. He settled on dark jeans and a blue button-down. No tie. No watch worth more than the average car. Nothing that screamed billionaire out of his element. The Little League field in Prospect Park was already busy when he arrived. Parents setting up folding chairs, children in matching uniforms warming up, coaches organizing equipment. He spotted Audrey immediately, setting up a chair near third base, a cooler at her feet. She looked different here. relaxed in jeans and a team t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. This was her world, not the sleek corporate environment where they'd first met. "You came," she said as he approached, surprise evident in her voice. "I said I would." He nodded toward the field where the boys were throwing balls back and forth. "How are they feeling about the game?" "Excited, nervous." She hesitated, "especially since they knew you were coming." A woman with short blonde hair joined them, carrying another folding chair. "Is this him?" she asked Audrey without preamble. "Kelly, this is Nathaniel Fraser." "Nathaniel, my friend Kelly Roberts." Kelly gave him a long, assessing look. "So you're the one who's been a framed photograph for 6 years." "Kelly," Audrey warned. "It's fine," Nathaniel said. "And yes, apparently that's me." Kelly set up her chair next to Audrey's. "Well, James and Michael are good kids. Smart, kind. Audrey's done an amazing job." "I can see that," Nathaniel agreed. "They're batting 4th and 5th today," Audrey said, changing the subject. "Michael's playing catcher for the first 3 innings. Then they'll switch and James will catch." As if hearing their names, both boys looked over from the field. Their faces lit up when they saw Nathaniel, and they waved enthusiastically. He waved back, feeling strangely exposed. "Do you want a chair?" Audrey asked. "We brought an extra." "Thank you," he said, accepting the folding chair she offered. As the game began, Nathaniel found himself genuinely engaged, cheering when James made a good catch, wincing when Michael swung and missed. The boys kept glancing over, checking if he was watching. "They're really good," he said during a break between innings. "They practice constantly," Audrey replied. "The apartment downstairs complained about the constant thump of balls until I started bringing them here every evening. You come to the park every night after work." "Most nights. They have a lot of energy to burn off." Nathaniel tried to imagine Audrey's daily routine, working full-time at the hospital, then rushing home to take 2 active boys to the park, making dinner, helping with homework, all of it alone. The logistics seemed overwhelming. "How do you do it all?" he asked quietly. She gave him a sidelong glance. "One day at a time. It helps having good support. My mom lives in New Jersey, comes in on weekends sometimes. Kelly picks them up from school when I have late meetings. And their father has been non-existent," he finished for her. "That was my choice," she reminded him. "I know. But still." The conversation paused as Michael came up to bat. He connected with the ball, sending it sailing between first and second base. Audrey and Nathaniel both jumped to their feet, cheering as he raced to first. "That's his first solid hit of the season," Audrey said, her face glowing with pride. "Run, Michael," Nathaniel called out, surprising himself with his enthusiasm. After the game, a narrow victory for the boys' team, James and Michael raced over, still in their dirt-stained uniforms. "Did you see my hit?" Michael asked Nathaniel excitedly. "I did. It was fantastic. You've got a great swing." "And James caught that line drive," Michael continued, never one to leave his brother out. "Best catch of the game," Nathaniel agreed. James, slightly quieter than his brother, studied Nathaniel's face. "You really watched the whole thing? You didn't look at your phone once?" The observation caught Nathaniel off guard. "Of course I watched. That's why I came." "Dads usually work on their phones," James explained matter-of-factly. "Even at games, Joey's dad does conference calls from the bleachers." Nathaniel felt a twinge of sadness at how observant these 6-year-olds were about parental distraction. "Well, I wanted to see you play. The phone can wait." The boys exchanged one of their silent twin communications. "We're getting ice cream to celebrate," Michael announced. "Mom said we could. Want to come?" Nathaniel looked at Audrey, who nodded slightly. "I'd love to." The ice cream shop was crowded with other families from the game, creating a chaotic, joyful atmosphere completely foreign to Nathaniel's usual Saturday routine of silent workouts and virtual meetings. "What do you usually do on weekends?" Michael asked around a mouthful of chocolate ice cream. Work, mostly, Nathaniel admitted. Sometimes I go running in the park. That sounds boring, James said bluntly. Nathaniel laughed. I suppose it is. We go to museums sometimes, Michael said, and the planetarium, and movies. And baseball games, James added. The real ones, not just Little League. You like the Mets? Nathaniel guessed. Both boys nodded enthusiastically. I have season tickets, Nathaniel said. Corporate box. Maybe sometime. He caught himself, glancing at Audrey. If your mom agrees, maybe we could all go sometime. The boys immediately turned pleading eyes to their mother. We'll see, she said, which from Nathaniel's limited parenting knowledge seemed to be the universal parent answer for maybe, but don't get your hopes up too high. As they were leaving the ice cream shop, Nathaniel's phone rang. The caller ID showed Marcus's name. He silenced it without answering. Important call? Audrey asked. Nothing that can't wait. Her eyebrows rose slightly, but she didn't comment further. They reached Audrey's apartment building. The boys raced ahead up the stairs, leaving the adults momentarily alone. Thank you for coming today, Audrey said. It meant a lot to them. Thank you for letting me. He hesitated. I'd like to see them again. I figured you would. She sighed. This is complicated, Nathaniel. They're already getting attached to the idea of you in their lives. Is that so bad? It is if you disappear again. She held up a hand to stop his protest. Not intentionally, maybe. But your life isn't built for parenting. The first time a major crisis hits at Fraser, you'll have to choose. I know that. And I'm working on restructuring some things. She looked skeptical. In a week, I've moved faster on bigger changes. He met her eyes directly. I want to be part of their lives, Audrey. A real part, not just an occasional visitor. I've missed too much already. Something in his tone must have convinced her, because her expression softened slightly. They have a science fair at school next Saturday. James is doing a project on rockets, Michael on heart valves. You could come see their presentations if you want. I'll be there, he promised. As he walked back to his car, Nathaniel felt lighter than he had in years. The sensation was so unfamiliar it took him a moment to recognize it as happiness. Monday morning, Nathaniel walked into the Fraser Industries boardroom 10 minutes late, something that had never happened before in the company's history. Sorry for the delay, he said, taking his place at the head of the table. Had to make a call. Marcus gave him a questioning look, but said nothing. Before we begin the usual agenda, I want to address the events of last Friday. Nathaniel looked around at the expectant faces of his executive team. As some of you may have heard, I recently discovered that I have 2 6-year-old sons. Murmurs rippled around the table. Most already knew through the corporate grapevine, but hearing it confirmed was different. This changes things, Nathaniel continued. For me personally, and to some extent, for the company. What exactly are you saying, Nate? Howard Blackwell, the oldest board member, asked cautiously. I'm saying that I'll be implementing a new structure. Marcus will take over day-to-day operations as COO+. I'll remain as CEO, but will be reducing my direct involvement in certain areas. The room erupted in concerned whispers. Is this temporary? Someone asked. No, Nathaniel said firmly. This is permanent. I've missed 6 years of my sons' lives. I won't miss any more than I have to. This is completely unprecedented, Howard sputtered. You can't just step back. The shareholders will continue to see growth, Nathaniel cut in. Marcus has been ready for more responsibility for years. Patterson can handle APAC expansion. Jenkins knows the European regulatory landscape better than I do. And what exactly will you be doing? Howard asked, his tone bordering on insubordination. Strategic direction, major relationships, product vision. Nathaniel leaned forward. The same things I've always been best at, just without the 80-hour weeks and constant travel. Marcus cleared his throat. I think what Nathaniel is proposing makes sense. We've grown beyond the point where any single person can oversee everything. Convenient timing, Howard muttered. I didn't plan this, Howard, Nathaniel said calmly. But now that it's happened, I'm adjusting, like we've always done as a company. The tension in the room remained palpable as they moved on to regular business. Nathaniel could feel the sidelong glances, the silent questions. For a man known for his unwavering focus on Fraser Industries, this shift was seismic. After the meeting, Marcus followed Nathaniel to his office. That went about as well as could be expected, Marcus said, closing the door behind him. Howard will come around, or he won't, and we'll deal with it. Board will back you. Your voting shares alone would secure it, but you've built too much goodwill to lose their support over a reasonable restructuring. Marcus studied his friend. How are you really doing with all this? It's a lot to process. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair. It's overwhelming. Every time I think I've wrapped my head around it, another implication hits me. I have children, Marcus, actual human beings who share my DNA, who have been out in the world for 6 years, without me knowing they exist. Have you talked to a lawyer? About what? Custody? Support? Nathaniel shook his head. I'm not looking to disrupt their lives with legal battles. They have a good home, a stable routine. I just want to be part of it. And their mother. What's her angle? She doesn't have an angle, Nathaniel said sharply. She made a choice 7 years ago that she thought was best for her children. She didn't ask for child support then, and she hasn't asked for anything now. Marcus held up his hands. I'm just looking out for you, Nate. People have been known to see dollar signs when a billionaire suddenly enters their life. Not Audrey. Of this, Nathaniel was certain. If anything, she's resistant to my involvement, worried I'll disappoint them. Will you? The question hung in the air, uncomfortably direct. I'm trying not to, Nathaniel said finally. The week passed in a blur of reorganization meetings, late-night calls with overseas partners explaining the new structure, and a growing pile of parenting books on Nathaniel's nightstand. He spoke with the boys every evening by video chat, learning about their day, answering their endless questions about his work, his apartment, whether he had ever been to space. No, but he knew people who had. By Saturday, he was simultaneously exhausted and energized in a way he'd never experienced before. The elementary school science fair was chaotic. Hundreds of children, parents, and hastily constructed projects filling the gymnasium. He spotted Audrey first, standing near a display about rocket propulsion. James beside her, animatedly explaining something to a judge. Michael was 2 tables away, pointing at a detailed model of a heart. You made it, Audrey said when she saw him, genuine surprise in her voice. I promised I would. He nodded toward James's project. How's he doing? Nervous but excited. The judges seem impressed. She gave him a closer look. You look tired. Restructuring a billion-dollar company takes a few late nights, he said lightly. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. His tone left no room for argument. Where should I start? James's rocket or Michael's heart? Michael first, she said. He's been checking the door every 30 seconds to see if you're here. Michael's face lit up when he saw Nathaniel approaching. Dad, you're here. Come see my project. I made a working heart valve model. Look, when you push this syringe, it shows how blood flows through. I used corn syrup with red food coloring because it's thicker than water, more like real blood. Nathaniel listened with growing amazement as Michael explained the entire circulatory system, with a precision that would impress medical students. That's incredible, he said when Michael finally paused for breath. How did you learn all this? Books. And YouTube. And Mom's friend Dr. Chen let me see real heart scans at the hospital. Michael leaned closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. I'm going to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. That means I'll fix people's hearts. I think you'll be an excellent surgeon, Nathaniel said, meaning it. After thoroughly examining both boys' projects and meeting several of their classmates' parents, who tried and failed to hide their curiosity about his sudden appearance in the twins' lives, they headed to lunch at a nearby pizza place. "Did you have science fairs when you were little?" James asked, reaching for his third slice. "Not like yours," Nathaniel admitted. "My father didn't believe in public schools. I had private tutors until high school." "That sounds lonely," Michael observed. The simple comment struck deeper than Nathaniel expected. "It was. Sometimes. Our school is fun," James said. "Except math. Math is boring because I already know how to do it." "James is really good with numbers," Audrey explained. "He does calculations in his head that most adults would need a calculator for." "Like what?" Nathaniel asked, genuinely curious. "James, what's 144 divided by 12? Audrey prompted. 12, James answered instantly. "That's too easy." "What's 17 times 24? Nathaniel tried. And James barely paused. 408. Nathaniel checked on his phone calculator. "That's right. I told you," Audrey said quietly. "He gets that from you. You used to do the same thing in budget meetings, remember? Running alternative projections in your head while everyone else was still punching numbers into spreadsheets." Nathaniel did remember. It had been one of his first notable skills when building the company, the ability to see numbers and instantly understand their relationships. To hear that his son shared this ability filled him with an unexpected pride. "Maybe you could help him develop it," Audrey suggested. "I try, but advanced math isn't my strength." "I'd like that," Nathaniel said, "if James wants to." James nodded enthusiastically. "Can you teach me about stocks? Joey's dad does stocks." "I can teach you about investing, yes. It's more than just buying and selling, though. It's about understanding value." "Like baseball cards," Michael interjected. "Some are worth more than others because they're rare or the player is really good." "Exactly like that," Nathaniel agreed, impressed by the analogy. As they finished lunch, Nathaniel's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Emergency with Singapore deal. Need you on video call ASAP." He felt a familiar surge of adrenaline, the crisis response that had defined his career, followed immediately by disappointment. He looked at the boys, animated and happy after their successful science fair, and made a decision. "Everything okay?" Audrey asked, noticing his expression. "Work thing," he said, typing a response. "Can Patterson handle? If not, give me 30 minutes to wrap up here." Marcus replied immediately. "Patterson tried. They want you. But can wait 30. I need to take a call in about half an hour," he told Audrey. "Something came up with an overseas partner." She nodded, unsurprised. "We should get going anyway. The boys have practice at 3. Can Dad come?" Michael asked eagerly. "Not today, buddy," Nathaniel said before Audrey could answer. "I have some work to handle, but I'll call you tonight, okay?" The disappointment on their faces was painful to see, but he reminded himself that this was the reality of balancing work and family. No one got it perfect. As they parted ways outside the restaurant, Audrey pulled him aside while the boys examined a poster for an upcoming movie. "Thank you for coming today," she said. "It meant a lot to them." "It meant a lot to me too." He hesitated. "I'd like to have them over to my place sometime, if that's okay with you. They keep asking to see where I live." Audrey considered this. "Maybe next weekend? Saturday afternoon?" "Perfect. I'll child-proof the penthouse," she laughed softly. "Good luck with that. 6-year-old boys can find danger in an empty room." As Nathaniel walked away, heading toward his car to take the Singapore call, he felt the now familiar mixture of joy and regret that seemed to define his new life. Joy at the growing connection with his sons, regret at the time already lost, and the compromises still to come. For someone who had built his life around control and calculation, this new territory of messy, complicated emotions was both terrifying and exhilarating. The following Saturday, Nathaniel paced his penthouse, checking and rechecking that everything was ready. He'd spent the week preparing, removing anything breakable from lower shelves, stocking the refrigerator with child-friendly snacks, even installing temporary safety locks on balcony doors. When his security team announced Audrey and the boys had arrived downstairs, he felt a nervousness he usually associated with major product launches or investor presentations. "Wow!" Both boys gasped in unison as they stepped off the private elevator into Nathaniel's apartment. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Central Park, the city stretching out beyond it. "This is where you live?" James asked incredulously. "It's like a spaceship," Michael added, already running toward the windows. "Careful," Audrey cautioned. But Nathaniel had already moved to intercept Michael before he could press against the glass. "The view is pretty amazing," Nathaniel agreed, guiding Michael to a safer distance. "I like watching the seasons change in the park." "Do you have a telescope here too?" James asked, clearly thinking about the stargazing possibilities. "Not yet, but that's a great idea. We could set one up on the terrace." "You have a terrace?" Both boys were already looking for it. The next hour was a whirlwind tour of the penthouse, the twins examining everything with unbridled curiosity. They were particularly fascinated by Nathaniel's home office, with its multiple screens and complex-looking equipment. "What's this do?" Michael asked, pointing to a holographic display unit. "It lets me see 3D models of new products we're developing," Nathaniel explained. "Want to try it?" He pulled up a simple model of a molecule, showing the boys how to rotate it with hand gestures. Their delight was infectious, and Nathaniel found himself enjoying the apartment in a way he never had before, seeing it through their eyes, as a place of wonder rather than just a convenient location to sleep between work sessions. "I brought some games," Audrey said once the initial exploration had calmed somewhat. "Board games," she clarified when Nathaniel looked confused. "I have games," he said defensively, "on the media server." "Not the same," she said with a smile. "Trust me." An hour later, Nathaniel found himself completely absorbed in a heated Monopoly battle. James, true to form, was methodically building a property empire, while Michael took wild risks that sometimes paid off spectacularly. "You're good at this," Nathaniel told James, as the boy calculated rent on his hotel-covered property. "It's just math," James shrugged, but looked pleased at the compliment. Halfway through the game, Nathaniel's phone rang. Marcus again. He glanced at it, then hit decline without breaking his concentration on the board. Audrey noticed. "You can take that if it's important." "It's not more important than this," he said simply. Something shifted in her expression then. A softening, a reassessment. She didn't comment, but Nathaniel felt he'd passed some kind of test. After games, pizza delivery, and ice cream. The boys were showing signs of fatigue, but fighting it valiantly. "We should probably head back," Audrey said, checking her watch. "It's getting late." "5 more minutes," Michael pleaded. Dad was going to show us the terrace. "Quick tour," Nathaniel agreed, leading them through glass doors to the spacious outdoor area overlooking the park. The spring evening was mild, the city lights just beginning to twinkle as dusk settled. "You can see forever," James breathed, pressing against the safety railing. "Can we come back in summer and swim?" Michael asked, pointing to the small lap pool at one end of the terrace. "If your mom agrees," Nathaniel said carefully, looking to Audrey. She didn't immediately refuse, which seemed promising. "Maybe. We'll see how things go." As they prepared to leave, the boys grew suddenly quiet, exchanging one of their silent communications. "Can we ask you something?" James finally said. "Of course," Nathaniel replied. "Are you going to be our dad all the time now? Or just sometime?" The directness of the question caught him off guard. He knelt down to their level, aware of Audrey watching intently. "I want to be your dad all the time," he said honestly. "I can't promise I'll always get it right, and there will be times when work takes me away. But I will always, always be your father, Nothing will change that. The boys nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. We should make a schedule, James suggested, for when we see you. That's a good idea, Nathaniel agreed. I like plans. Me too, James said solemnly. In the elevator down to the lobby, Michael yawned widely, despite his best efforts to hide it. Someone's ready for bed, Audrey observed. Not tired, Michael mumbled unconvincingly. As they reached the lobby, Nathaniel's driver was waiting to take them home to Brooklyn. The boys hugged Nathaniel goodbye with surprising fierceness. Thanks for showing us your spaceship house, Michael said. Thanks for coming to visit it, Nathaniel replied, finding it hard to let them go. After they climbed into the car, Audrey lingered for a moment. You're doing better than I expected, she admitted quietly. At being a father, at adjusting. I half thought you'd have an assistant entertain them while you took calls. I considered hiring experts, he admitted. Child development specialists, educational consultants. But then I realized that's not what they need. They need me, even if I'm figuring it out as I go. Audrey studied him for a long moment. They're starting to really care about you. Just be careful with that. It's precious. I know. He met her gaze steadily. I won't let them down, Audrey. Or you. As the car pulled away, Nathaniel stood watching until it disappeared into traffic. The lobby felt strangely empty without the boy's energy and questions. Back in his penthouse, he wandered from room to room, seeing it differently now. The pristine surfaces seemed sterile rather than elegant. The carefully curated art felt impersonal. For the first time since buying the place, he wondered if it was really a home or just an expensive hotel suite. His phone rang again. Marcus, for the third time that day. This time, he answered. What's so urgent? Singapore is threatening to pull out. They want a personal guarantee from you about the cardiac technology timeline. Patterson couldn't convince them. Nathaniel sighed. Set up a call for tomorrow morning. They want it now, Nate. They're all sitting in a conference room in Singapore waiting. It's almost midnight there. Hence the urgency. They've made it clear they're prepared to walk if you can't make time for this call. Nathaniel thought about the $500 million investment at stake, about the cardiac technology that could potentially save thousands of lives once developed, about his responsibility to shareholders, employees, patients. Then he thought about James and Michael, about promises made and kept. Tell them I'll call in 15 minutes, he said finally. But make it clear this is exceptional. Going forward, they deal with Patterson or you on implementation details. As he set up his computer for the call, Nathaniel realized he was navigating a tightrope that would likely define the rest of his life, balancing the company he'd built with the family he'd just discovered. Neither could be sacrificed entirely for the other. The real question was whether he could find a sustainable balance before something valuable fell. Over the next few weeks, a tentative routine developed. Nathaniel had dinner with the boys every Wednesday after work and spent Saturday afternoons with them, sometimes at his place, sometimes at various kid-friendly locations around the city. They attended another baseball game, visited the Natural History Museum, and spent a memorable afternoon at a hands-on science center where Michael had excitedly explained blood cell functions to a bemused docent. Audrey maintained a careful distance during these outings, making herself scarce when Nathaniel came to the apartment, sending Kelly a chaperone when she had work commitments. While she was unfailingly polite, she kept their interactions focused entirely on the boys, deflecting any personal questions with practiced ease. At Fraser Industries, the restructuring was slowly taking hold. Marcus had stepped confidently into his expanded role, while Nathaniel focused on strategic direction and major relationships. Howard and a few other board members remained skeptical, watching for any sign that the company was suffering from its CEO's divided attention. The first major test came on a Wednesday afternoon in late May. Nathaniel was in his office, reviewing acquisition targets, when Marcus burst in without knocking. The FDA just rejected our emergency application for the neural interface. They're questioning the safety data from the last trial. Nathaniel looked up sharply. What? Those results were clear. Patterson verified them personally. They're saying the sample size was insufficient. This puts us back at least 6 months, maybe a year, and gives MindTech time to catch up, Nathaniel finished grimly. The neural interface was Fraser's most ambitious project, technology that could potentially help paralyzed patients regain movement. It was also the cornerstone of their next-generation product strategy. The stock's already sliding. Someone leaked it before the official announcement. Nathaniel checked his watch. 3:15. He was supposed to pick up the boys at 5 for their Wednesday dinner. Get Patterson and the research team in the conference room. Pull every piece of data from those trials. We need to find out if there's any merit to the FDA's concerns. What about legal? Them too. And call Singapore. They'll need reassurance this doesn't affect the cardiac tech timeline. By 4:30, the crisis was in full swing. The stock had dropped 15%. Analysts were issuing concerned statements, and the conference room was filled with researchers arguing over statistical models. Nathaniel stepped away from the table, checking his phone. No messages from Audrey yet, but he knew he needed to call her. This wasn't something he could resolve in the next 30 minutes. He stepped into his office, closed the door, and dialed her number. "Hi," she answered, sounding distracted. "Are you on your way?" "The boys are already changed and ready. That's why I'm calling. There's a situation at work, a major FDA rejection we didn't see coming." Silence on the line. Then, "You're canceling." It wasn't a question, but he answered anyway. "I have to, Audrey. The company's stock is in freefall. There are hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, not to mention a technology that could help thousands of patients." Another pause. "I understand. I'll tell them something came up." Her tone was neutral, but he could hear the disappointment and lack of surprise behind it. "Tell them I'm sorry, really sorry. I'll make it up to them this weekend." "Sure." The word was clipped, final. "Audrey, it's fine, Nathaniel. This is exactly what I expected would happen eventually. It's why I made the choices I did 7 years ago." The call ended before he could respond. Nathaniel stared at the phone, a sick feeling settling in his stomach. He'd known this moment would come, when his two worlds collided and forced a choice. But knowing it was inevitable didn't make it any easier. He walked back to the conference room where everyone was waiting for his direction. For a moment, he saw them all as he always had. Brilliant minds working together to solve important problems. The team he'd built over 15 years. Then, unbidden, he saw James and Michael waiting by their apartment door, dressed and ready, excited for dinner with the father they were just getting to know. The father who wasn't coming. "Patterson," he said abruptly, "you've been closer to the trial data than anyone. Walk us through what the FDA might be seeing that we missed." As Patterson began his analysis, Nathaniel made a decision. "I need to step out for about 2 hours," he announced, cutting across the technical discussion. "Marcus will continue this meeting. I want options when I return. Legal strategies, scientific rebuttals, communications plans, everything." Stunned silence fell across the room. "You're leaving?" Howard asked incredulously. "Now?" "Yes," Nathaniel said simply. "I made a commitment I need to keep. I'll be back by 8, and we'll work through the night if necessary." Without waiting for further reaction, he gathered his phone and keys. "Marcus, you have point until I return." In the elevator down to the lobby, Nathaniel called his driver. "Change of plans. We're still picking up the boys, but we'll need to come back to the office afterward." He arrived at Audrey's apartment at 5:20, 20 minutes late but not entirely absent. When she opened the door, her surprise was evident. "You came." "I said I would. But your crisis is still happening, but so is dinner with James and Michael." He glanced past her to the living room where the boys were playing. unaware of his arrival. There's been a change of plans, though. After dinner, I need to bring them back to my office for a while. I have to work tonight. Audrey frowned. Nathaniel, they can't just sit in your office while you work. They're 6. I know. But I thought it was better than canceling entirely. He lowered his voice. I'm trying, Audrey. This is me trying to balance both. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Fine, but not too late. They still have school tomorrow. The boys were ecstatic to see him, their unfiltered joy making the complicated logistics worth it. They chattered through dinner at a casual restaurant near Fraser Industries, unaware of the corporate drama unfolding nearby. And now, Nathaniel said as they finished their meals, I have a special surprise. You get to see where I work. Your real office? James asked excitedly. The actual building where you're the boss? Michael added. The very same, Nathaniel confirmed. I have some important work tonight, but I thought you might like to see it. Will there be other kids? Michael asked. No, just you two. Most people don't bring their children to work, especially not in the evening. So we're special, James concluded with satisfaction. Very special, Nathaniel agreed. When they arrived at Fraser headquarters, the security guard did a double-take at the sight of the CEO returning with 2 small boys in tow. Evening, Mr. Fraser, he said, professionally hiding his surprise. Your team is still in conference room A. Thank you, George. These are my sons, James and Michael. They'll be with me this evening. The boys beamed at being introduced as his sons. Welcome to Fraser Industries, young gentlemen, George said solemnly, presenting them each with visitor badges. As they rode the elevator to the executive floor, James and Michael grew uncharacteristically quiet, perhaps sensing the gravity of the situation from the hushed atmosphere and hurried employees they passed in the lobby. Everyone looks worried, Michael observed. We had some bad news today, Nathaniel explained. Everyone's working hard to solve the problem. What kind of problem? James asked. Nathaniel considered how to explain it at a 6-year-old level. We made a special device to help people who can't move their arms and legs. But the government agency that approves medical devices thinks we need to do more testing to prove it's safe. Like Michael's heart project, James said. He had to show his work. Exactly like that, Nathaniel agreed, impressed by the comparison. When they entered the conference room, all conversation stopped. 8 adults stared at the small boys who had entered their crisis session. Everyone, Nathaniel said calmly, as if bringing children to a high-level meeting was perfectly normal. These are my sons, James and Michael. Boys, these are some of the people I work with. Marcus recovered first, standing to greet them. Hello there. I'm Marcus, your dad's friend and colleague. The others followed suit, introducing themselves with varying degrees of awkwardness. Howard remained seated, his disapproval evident. James and Michael will be with us for a bit, Nathaniel continued. I've set them up in my office with some activities, but they might come in and out. Now, where do we stand with the FDA response? As the meeting resumed, Nathaniel led the boys to his adjoining office, where he quickly established them with tablets loaded with educational games and a stack of paper and colored pencils. I need to work with my team, he explained, but I'll check on you every 15 minutes. If you need anything, just come to the door and wave. Don't interrupt unless it's important, okay? They nodded solemnly, clearly understanding the unusual situation. For the next hour, Nathaniel split his attention between the crisis meeting and regular checks on the boys. To his surprise, they remained quiet and occupied, occasionally peeking through the glass wall to watch the adults, but not disturbing them. During one check, he found James carefully drawing what appeared to be a diagram. What's that? He asked. It's the neural interface, James said matter-of-factly. I heard you talking about it. This is how I think it works. Nathaniel studied the drawing with amazement. It was a surprisingly sophisticated representation of neural pathways connecting to mechanical components. "That's actually pretty close," he admitted. James looked pleased. "I read about brain interfaces in my science book. They use electricity to talk to nerves. Would you like to see what our actual design looks like?" James nodded eagerly. So Nathaniel pulled up a simplified schematic on his tablet. The boy studied it intently, asking thoughtful questions that Nathaniel would have expected from graduate students, not first graders. When he returned to the meeting, Nathaniel found himself looking at the FDA problem with fresh eyes. "What if we're approaching this wrong?" he said suddenly, interrupting a technical discussion. "The FDA isn't questioning our technology, they're questioning our evidence. We need to reframe the conversation." By 8:30, they had outlined a new strategy. Admit the sample size was smaller than ideal, but propose an accelerated supplementary trial focused specifically on the FDA's safety concerns. "It won't get us immediate approval," Patterson said, "but it could reduce the delay to 3 months instead of a year." "That's acceptable," Nathaniel agreed. "Draft the proposal tonight. I want to review it first thing tomorrow." As the meeting wrapped up, Howard approached Nathaniel. "A word?" he said quietly, nodding toward a corner away from the others. "Make it quick," Nathaniel replied. "I need to get the boys home." Howard didn't bother hiding his disapproval. "This isn't a daycare center, Nathaniel. Bringing children to a crisis meeting." "My children," Nathaniel corrected. "And they were in my office, not the meeting." "Point stands. You're sending a message that your personal situation takes precedence over company interests." Nathaniel regarded the older man coolly. "No, Howard. I'm sending a message that I can honor both commitments. The strategy we developed tonight is solid. The company is in good hands, for now. But sooner or later, you'll have to choose." "I already have," Nathaniel said simply. "I've chosen both." When he returned to his office, he found both boys had fallen asleep. Michael curled up in his executive chair, James on the small sofa, surrounded by drawings. Nathaniel carefully gathered their things, then lifted Michael into his arms. "James," he said softly, gently shaking the boy's shoulder. "Time to go home." James blinked awake, momentarily confused. "Did you fix the problem?" "We're working on it," Nathaniel said. "Thank you for being so good tonight." "It was interesting," James mumbled sleepily, taking Nathaniel's hand as they walked to the elevator. In the car back to Brooklyn, both boys dozed against him, their small bodies warm and trusting. Nathaniel felt a fierce protectiveness that made the company crisis seem suddenly less apocalyptic. Fraser Industries would weather this storm, as it had others. The stock would recover. The neural interface would eventually be approved. These moments, though, his sons sleeping against him, trusting him to get them home safely, these were irreplaceable. When they arrived at Audrey's apartment, she was waiting up, concern evident on her face. "They fell asleep," Nathaniel whispered as he carried Michael inside, James drowsily following. "I'll put them to bed," Audrey said. "Wait here." While she tucked the boys in, Nathaniel stood awkwardly in the living room, noticing small changes since his last visit. New artwork on the walls, a half-finished puzzle on the coffee table, a science project taking shape on the dining table. "They're out cold," Audrey said, returning. James mumbled something about neural interfaces before he fell back asleep. "Should I be concerned?" Nathaniel smiled faintly. He was drawing his own version at the office. It was surprisingly accurate. "He absorbs everything." Audrey hesitated. "How did your crisis turn out?" "We have a path forward. Not perfect, but workable." "And bringing the boys to the office. How did that go over?" "About as well as you'd expect. Some of my team adapted. Others, not so much." Audrey nodded, unsurprised. "That's going to be your life now. Perpetual judgment from both sides. Too much father for the business world, too much businessman for the parenting world." The insight caught him off guard. You sound like you understand the feeling. Left a promising research career to raise 2 babies alone. Trust me, I know exactly what it's like to have people question your priorities. She crossed her arms, studying him. But you showed up tonight, even with everything falling apart at work. That mattered. I almost didn't, he admitted. It was tempting to just stay and fix the crisis. But you didn't. No. He met her eyes. I'm trying to get this right, Audrey. I know I'm still figuring it out, but I'm trying. Something in her expression softened. I see that. As he turned to leave, Audrey called after him. Nathaniel, the boys' end-of-year school ceremony is next Friday at 10 a.m. They're both getting achievement awards. It would mean a lot if you could come. I'll be there, he promised. In the car back to Manhattan, Nathaniel realized it was the first time Audrey had voluntarily included him in a school event. A small step, perhaps, but significant nonetheless. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Singapore calling for updates. Want me to handle? 5 weeks ago, Nathaniel would have taken that call himself, regardless of the hour. Now, he typed back. Yes. Brief me in the morning. Progress on both fronts. Not perfect, but progress. The school auditorium buzzed with excitement as parents and families found seats for the end-of-year ceremony. Nathaniel arrived 15 minutes early, having rescheduled a quarterly planning session to be there. He spotted Audrey in the 3rd row, saving seats with programs. You made it, she said, as he slid into the chair beside her. She looked different today, more polished in a summer dress and light makeup, her hair styled, instead of in its usual practical ponytail. Wouldn't miss it, he replied, accepting the program she handed him. How are they doing? Nervous? Michael's fine. He loves attention. James is a little anxious about going on stage. She nodded toward the side of the auditorium where children in their best clothes were lining up with teachers. The twins saw them and waved enthusiastically. As Nathaniel waved back, he noticed several nearby parents watching with undisguised curiosity. His appearance at school events was still novel enough to cause a stir. The PTA moms have been buzzing about you for weeks, Audrey murmured, following his gaze. Billionaire CEO suddenly appearing at baseball games and science fairs. You're quite the topic of speculation. What do they think happened? Oh, the theories are creative. My favorite is that you and I had a secret romance that ended tragically, and I nobly raised the children alone until you discovered the truth. Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. That's not entirely inaccurate. The secret romance part is a bit of an exaggeration, she replied dryly. One weekend doesn't qualify as a romance. Before he could respond, an older woman with silver hair took the seat on Audrey's other side. Mom, Audrey said, turning to her. You remember Nathaniel Fraser. Margaret Winters regarded him with cool assessment. They'd met briefly once before, at a baseball game, but hadn't spoken beyond basic introductions. Mr. Fraser, she said with a nod. I understand you've been spending time with my grandsons. Yes, ma'am. They're remarkable boys. They are. Her tone made it clear who she believed was responsible for that. Audrey has done an exceptional job raising them. She has, Nathaniel agreed without hesitation. Something in his immediate acknowledgement seemed to surprise Margaret. Her expression softened slightly. James has been practicing his thank you speech all week, she said. He's worried about forgetting the words. He mentioned that during our chess game yesterday, Nathaniel said. I told him even professional speakers get nervous. The conversation was interrupted by the principal taking the stage to begin the ceremony. For the next hour, Nathaniel watched with genuine pride as various students received awards and performed short presentations. When James was called up for the Mathematics Achievement Award, the boy walked carefully to the stage, his face a mask of concentration. I want to thank my teachers and my mom for helping me, James said into the microphone, his voice small but clear. And my dad for showing me how math works in real life. He looked directly at Nathaniel, a shy smile breaking through his serious expression. Beside him, Audrey drew in a quick breath. It was the first time either boy had publicly acknowledged him as their father. Michael, receiving the Science Innovation Award shortly after, was more exuberant. Thanks to my mom, who takes me to the museum, and my grandma, who reads me books, and my dad, who showed me his company, makes things that help people's bodies work better. As the boys returned to their seats with the other children, Nathaniel felt an unfamiliar tightness in his throat. He'd received countless business awards, seen his name on Fortune magazine's cover, been applauded by rooms full of investors, but nothing had ever affected him like the simple acknowledgement from two small boys who happened to share his DNA. After the ceremony, as parents and children mingled in the courtyard with refreshments, Nathaniel found himself included in a family group photo, standing somewhat awkwardly beside Audrey, as Margaret took pictures of the boys with their award certificates. "One with all of you," Margaret directed, waving Nathaniel and Audrey closer to the twins. As they posed, the boys in front, Nathaniel and Audrey behind them with tentative hands on small shoulders. Nathaniel was struck by how much they looked like a normal family, how right it felt, despite the complicated path that had brought them to this moment. "Fraser?" Nathaniel Fraser, a man in an expensive suit, approached, hand extended. "Thomas Whitfield, Whitfield Partners. My son is in the twins class. I've been hoping to run into you." Nathaniel recognized the name, a mid-sized investment firm that had been trying to secure a meeting with him for months. "Mr. Whitfield, nice to meet you. I had no idea you were connected to Westside Academy," Whitfield continued, his eyes calculating despite his friendly tone. "My firm has been interested in discussing some opportunities with Fraser Industries. Perhaps we could set something up while our boys finish the school year." The transparent networking attempt made Nathaniel's jaw tighten. "My assistant handles my meeting schedule. You're welcome to contact her." Of course. Just thought since we're both fathers here." Whitfield smiled thinly. "Dad," James interrupted, tugging at Nathaniel's sleeve. "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" Mom said to ask you. Nathaniel had never been so grateful for an interruption. "Absolutely. Ice cream is essential after award ceremonies." He nodded curtly to Whitfield. "If you'll excuse us." As they walked away, Audrey gave him a knowing look. "School events are networking gold mines. Better get used to it." "Is that why you're always so neatly armed with excuses to escape conversations?" he asked, recalling how efficiently she'd extricated herself from several persistent parents. 6 years of practice," she confirmed. "Though I never had to fend off investment pitches, just plenty of single dads and moms trying to arrange playdates that somehow always included wine for the adults." Something in her tone caught his attention. "That happens often?" "Often enough," she said with a small shrug. "Single mom, decent job, reasonably put together. I'm apparently quite the catch in the divorced with children dating pool." Thought of other men pursuing Audrey had never occurred to Nathaniel, though it should have. She was attractive, intelligent, capable. Of course she would have options. "Do you?" he asked, before he could stop himself. "Date, I mean." She gave him a curious look. "Rarely. Between work and the boys, there's not much time, and most men lose interest when they realize my children will always come first." She paused. "Why do you ask?" Nathaniel wasn't entirely sure himself. "Just trying to understand your life better," he said finally. "All of it, not just the parts that involve James and Michael." Before Audrey could respond, the boys ran up, excitedly showing their grandmother something on her phone. "Ice cream?" Michael reminded the adults. "Right," Nathaniel said, grateful for the subject change. "Where should we go?" They ended up at a small ice cream shop a few blocks from the school, the 5 of them crowded around a table meant for 4. Margaret, to Nathaniel's surprise, proved to be sharp-witted and funny once she relaxed her protective stance, telling stories about Audrey's childhood science experiments that often ended in minor disasters. "Mom," Audrey protested, after a particularly embarrassing tale involving a chemistry set and singed curtains. I'm sure Nathaniel doesn't need to hear about all my failures. Not failures, Nathaniel corrected. Learning experiences. That's what I tell my R&D team anyway. Your mom has always been brilliant, Margaret told the boys. Even when she was making messes, she just needed the right focus. Nathaniel watched Audrey's interaction with her mother, noting the easy affection between them despite occasional moments of tension. This was what family looked like. Complicated, sometimes frustrating, but fundamentally supportive. His own parents had been distant figures. His father consumed by building his first business, his mother by her social obligations and charity work. They'd provided everything he needed materially, but emotional connection had been rare. When they died, his father of a heart attack when Nathaniel was in college, his mother of cancer 5 years later, he'd mourned them but hadn't felt the devastating loss others described when losing parents. He didn't want that for his sons. He wanted them to miss him when he wasn't there, to know without question that they mattered more than any business accomplishment. As they finished their ice cream, James asked, "Can Dad come over tomorrow too? We're building the solar system model for next year." "Actually," Audrey said, "I was thinking maybe you two could spend the day at Dad's place, if that works for him." She glanced at Nathaniel. "They've been asking about swimming in your pool since they saw it." Nathaniel tried not to show his surprise at the suggestion. Until now, Audrey had always been present during their time together, or had sent Kelly as a stand-in. "I'd love that," he said. "We could swim, have lunch, maybe visit the planetarium since you're working on a space model." "Yes," both boys cheered. "I'll bring them by around 9, Audrey said. "And pick them up at 5? Perfect." Nathaniel hesitated, then added, "You're welcome to stay too, if you want." Something flickered in Audrey's eyes. Surprise, consideration, then a gentle refusal. "Thank you, but I have some work to catch up on. It'll be good for you to have time with just them." Margaret was watching this exchange with keen interest, her eyes moving between her daughter and Nathaniel as if reassessing something. When they parted ways outside the ice cream shop, Nathaniel found himself unexpectedly included in the round of goodbye hugs initiated by the boys. Margaret's handshake was firmer, her gaze more direct. "You're making an effort," she said quietly, while Audrey helped the boys clean ice cream from their faces. "That's more than many would do in your position." "They're worth it," he replied simply. She studied him a moment longer. "Yes, they are." The next day was a revelation. Without Audrey or any other adults present, the dynamic between Nathaniel and the boys shifted subtly. They were more open, more demanding of his attention, less careful about their behavior. He found himself setting boundaries he hadn't needed to before, negotiating small conflicts between them, making on-the-spot decisions about what was safe or appropriate. It was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. They spent the morning swimming, with plenty of sunscreen reapplied at regular intervals as Audrey had instructed, followed by lunch and a trip to the planetarium. By the time they returned to his apartment for a snack before Audrey picked them up, Nathaniel had a newfound appreciation for what she managed every day. As the boys sprawled on his living room floor, working on preliminary sketches for their solar system model, Nathaniel found himself watching them with a sense of wonder. These complex, brilliant, sometimes challenging little people were part of him, and increasingly, he was part of them. His phone buzzed with a text from Audrey. "Traffic terrible. Running 30 minutes late." "Sorry, no problem," he replied. "We're good here." When she eventually arrived, looking harried and apologetic, Nathaniel was in the kitchen with the boys, teaching them how to make simple pasta sauce. "Mom," Michael called out, "we're making dinner. Dad showed us how to chop onions without crying." "The secret is a sharp knife," James added seriously, "and not getting emotionally attached to the onion." Audrey laughed, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "That sounds like useful life advice in general." "We thought you might want to stay for dinner," Nathaniel said, "since it's getting late," and the boys helped prepare it. She hesitated only briefly. That would be nice. Thank you. As they ate the simple meal at Nathaniel's rarely used dining table, the conversation flowed easily. The boys recounting their planetarium trip in enthusiastic detail, Audrey asking thoughtful questions, Nathaniel sharing an anecdote about meeting an actual astronaut at a tech conference. It felt natural, like family. After dinner, as the boys became absorbed in a video about Mars exploration that Nathaniel pulled up on his media screen, Audrey helped him clear the dishes despite his protests. "You don't have to do that," he said, as she rinsed plates in his kitchen sink. "I have a service that comes in." "Force of habit," she replied. "Besides, it's only fair since you cooked." "The boys did most of the work," he admitted. "I just supervised. Still, thank you for today. They had a wonderful time." Nathaniel leaned against the counter, watching her efficient movements. "They're amazing, Audrey. Challenging sometimes, but amazing." She smiled. "Welcome to parenthood. It's basically oscillating between thinking they're the most incredible humans ever created and wondering if you're completely failing them." "Do you ever," he asked quietly, "feel like you're failing them?" She paused, considering the question seriously. "Sometimes, when work gets overwhelming, or when I'm too tired to be as patient as they deserve, or when I can't afford something they really want." She glanced toward the living room, where the boys were still engrossed in the Mars video. "But then I look at who they're becoming. Kind, curious, resilient, and I think maybe I'm doing okay." "You're doing far better than okay," Nathaniel said. "They're extraordinary, and that's largely because of you." Audrey met his eyes, a genuine smile softening her features. "Thank you for saying that." Something shifted between them in that moment. A warmth, an understanding, perhaps even the beginning of something more. Nathaniel found himself noticing details he'd overlooked before. The small freckles across her nose, the way her eyes crinkled slightly at the corners when she smiled, the graceful movement of her hands as she dried them on a kitchen towel. The moment was broken by James calling from the living room. "Dad, Mom, they're showing the rockets that will take people to Mars. Come see." As they joined the boys on the sofa, settling on either side of them, Nathaniel caught Audrey's glance over their heads. The smile she gave him felt like a new beginning, tentative but genuine. For a man who had built his life around careful calculations and strategic planning, this uncharted territory of family and feeling was both terrifying and thrilling. He had no roadmap, no business plan, no clear metrics for success. But watching his sons' excited faces as they pointed out features of the Mars rockets, feeling the warmth of them pressed against him on the sofa, catching Audrey's eye when the boys said something particularly clever, Nathaniel realized he'd never been more certain that he was exactly where he needed to be. If you've ever found yourself on an unexpected path that turned out to be exactly right, hit that like button and share your story in the comments. Sometimes our greatest blessings come from the plans we never made. The following Monday, Marcus cornered Nathaniel after the executive meeting. "We need to talk," he said, his expression unusually serious. "Problem?" Nathaniel asked as they walked toward his office. "Potentially. Howard's been meeting with board members. I heard from Jenkins that he's building a case for restructuring leadership." "Meaning what, exactly?" "Meaning he thinks you should transition to chairman and appoint a new CEO, someone without distractions." Marcus closed the office door behind them. His words, not mine. Nathaniel sat behind his desk, his expression giving nothing away. He's free to propose whatever he wants. He doesn't have the votes. Not yet. But the FDA situation spooked people, and the Singapore deal is still shaky. If we hit another crisis. Marcus trailed off. "Look, Nate, you know I support you. I think what you're doing with your kids is great, but Howard's playing on real concerns. About my commitment to the company? About your availability? About whether we can handle emergencies effectively with you splitting your attention?" Marcus leaned forward. "The quarterly numbers come out next week. They need to be solid, or Howard's position gets stronger." Nathaniel nodded. already calculating. The quarterly results were shaping up well, but there were weak spots that needed attention before the release. "I'll handle Howard," he said, "and the numbers. But I want you to start preparing contingency plans for leadership transitions." Marcus looked alarmed. "You're not considering stepping down?" "No. But I want to be ready for any scenario. If Howard wants a fight, we'll be prepared." After Marcus left, Nathaniel stared out his office window at the Manhattan skyline. He'd built Fraser Industries from nothing, navigated countless challenges, outmaneuvered competitors and skeptics. This was just another business problem to solve, except it wasn't. Not entirely. Because for the first time, the stakes extended beyond share prices and market position. His relationship with his sons, and perhaps with Audrey, was tied to his identity as CEO of Fraser Industries. It provided the resources to support them, the flexibility to restructure his time around them, the platform from which he could ensure their future. The next few months brought a delicate balancing act as Nathaniel navigated both his corporate challenges and his evolving family relationships. Howard's attempt to undermine his leadership fizzled when the quarterly numbers came in stronger than expected, but the tension at Fraser Industries remained. Meanwhile, his connection with James and Michael deepened with each passing week. Summer vacation allowed for more time together. Weekend trips to the Hamptons, swimming lessons in his penthouse pool, impromptu science experiments that occasionally required professional cleaning services afterward. More surprisingly, his relationship with Audrey began to shift. What started as co-parenting coordination gradually expanded to include coffee while the boys had playdates, conversations that lingered after drop-offs, and eventually, dinner just the two of them while Margaret watched the twins. "This feels strange," Audrey admitted during that first dinner alone. "Being with you without the boys is our buffer." "Good strange, or bad strange?" Nathaniel asked. She considered, twirling pasta around her fork. "Different strange. 7 years ago, we barely knew each other before everything happened. Now we're raising children together. But we're still practically strangers in some ways." "What would you like to know?" The simple question opened a conversation that lasted hours. They talked about their childhoods, their ambitions, their fears. Nathaniel spoke about the pressure of being his father's son, the drive to prove himself that had consumed his 20s and 30s. Audrey shared her struggles as a woman in science, the difficult choice to pause her research career for motherhood, her determination to create a different kind of family than the one she'd grown up in. By the end of the evening, Nathaniel felt he truly knew her for the first time, not just as his son's mother, but as a brilliant, complex woman with her own dreams and disappointments. "I misjudged you," he admitted, as they walked back to her apartment. 7 years ago. I thought you were just passing through my life. And I thought you were too consumed by ambition to care about anything else," she replied. "Maybe we were both right at the time. And now," she looked up at him, the streetlights casting gentle shadows across her face. "Now, I think we're both changing. Because of them." When they reached her building, she surprised him with a quick kiss on the cheek. "Good night, Nathaniel. Thank you for dinner." It was a small gesture, but it felt like crossing an important threshold. As autumn approached, bringing with it the routine of a new school year, the boundaries between their separate lives continued to blur. Family dinners became regular occurrences. Nathaniel kept clothes and toiletries at Audrey's apartment for late evenings. When putting the boys to bed, turned into watching a movie with Audrey afterward. At Fraser Industries, he implemented more permanent changes, restructuring meetings around school schedules, establishing clear protocols for which emergencies required his immediate attention, delegating authority more broadly across the executive team. Howard remained a thorn in his side, but a manageable one. The neural interface had received provisional approval after the supplementary trials, and the stock had not only recovered, but reached new highs. "You're actually pulling this off," Marcus observed during a rare quiet moment. The whole work-life balance thing. Not perfectly, Nathaniel admitted, but getting better at it. Real test came in November when James fell ill with pneumonia. One day he was fine. The next he was in the pediatric ward with a dangerously high fever and difficulty breathing. Nathaniel was in Tokyo when Audrey called, her voice tight with worry. He immediately canceled the remaining meetings and took the first flight back, arriving at the hospital 16 hours later, exhausted and anxious. He found Audrey in James's room, sitting beside the bed where their son lay sleeping, attached to monitors and in fourth. "How is he?" Nathaniel asked quietly, setting down his travel bag. Audrey looked up, relief washing over her tired face. "Better. The fever broke a few hours ago. They say we can probably take him home tomorrow if he continues improving. And Michael?" "With my mother. He wanted to stay, but..." She gestured to the hospital room. Not the best place for a healthy child. Nathaniel moved to the other side of James's bed, gently placing his hand on the boy's forehead. It was cooler than he'd feared, but still warm. "You didn't have to come back," Audrey said. "I know how important the Tokyo meetings were." "Yes, I did," he replied simply. "He's my son." Something in Audrey's expression shifted, the last bit of reservation she'd been holding melting away. "I was so scared," she whispered. "When the doctor said they wanted to admit him, all I could think was that he needed both of us." "I'm here now," Nathaniel said, reaching across the bed to take her hand. "And I'm not going anywhere." They spent the night in James's hospital room, taking turns dozing in the uncomfortable visitor chair. When James woke early the next morning, groggy but improved, his face lit up at seeing both his parents. "Dad, you came back from Japan." "Of course I did. Nothing's more important than you being okay." The doctor who checked James later that morning confirmed he could go home, though he would need rest and continued medication. As they prepared to leave, Audrey turned to Nathaniel. "Stay with us," she said, "at the apartment. Until he's better at least." It wasn't a request he'd expected, but the answer was immediate. Of course. The next week was a revelation. Nathaniel working remotely from Audrey's dining table, helping manage James's recovery, supporting Michael through his worry for his twin, and experiencing for the first time the mundane rhythms of everyday family life. Morning routines of breakfast and medications. Afternoon quiet time when James needed rest. Evening board games that always seemed to end with Michael's dramatic victories and James's strategic complaints. And late nights with Audrey, after the boys were asleep, talking softly on her living room sofa about everything and nothing. "This is what we missed," she said one evening, curled against his side, her head on his shoulder. "What they missed. Having both of us." "We're here now," Nathaniel replied, his arm around her. "That's what matters." She looked up at him, her expression serious. "Is it enough, this complicated arrangement we've created?" He understood the real question beneath her words. "Are you asking if I want more?" "Maybe." She smiled faintly. "We've been doing this backward, haven't we? Children first, then dating, now, whatever this is becoming." Nathaniel brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I think it's becoming exactly what it should be. A family." The kiss that followed felt like both a beginning and a completion. The final piece of a puzzle they hadn't realized they were solving together. By Christmas, Nathaniel had all but moved into Audrey's apartment, though he maintained his penthouse for now. The boys accepted the development with the matter-of-fact adaptation of children. Of course, Dad would live with them. It made perfect sense. Could they convert his home office into a science lab? Fraser Industries continued to thrive under the new leadership structure. Howard eventually retired, replaced by a younger board member who appreciated Nathaniel's more balanced approach. The neural interface received full approval, launching Fraser into a new era of medical technology that promised to help thousands of patients. On Christmas morning, as the boys tore into presents under Audrey's modest tree, Nathaniel found himself reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the past year. from complete ignorance of his son's existence to this moment of complete belonging. "Last one," Audrey announced, handing James a small package. The boy unwrapped it carefully, revealing a velvet box. Inside was a key. "What's this for?" James asked. "It's for our new home," Nathaniel explained. "All of us, together." Boys looked confused, but excited. "We're moving?" "To a house," Audrey clarified, "with a backyard for experiments and a room for Grandma when she visits. And a telescope room on the top floor," Nathaniel added, "for stargazing." Michael's eyes widened. "Really? When?" "After the new year," Nathaniel said. "It's being renovated now." "That's the big surprise," Audrey said. "But there's one more." She glanced at Nathaniel, a question in her eyes. He nodded, taking her hand in his. "Your dad and I are getting married," Audrey said simply. "In the spring, if that's okay with you two." The boy's reaction was instantaneous and jubilant. A chaotic mix of cheering, jumping, and rapid-fire questions about the wedding, the house, whether they could have a dog now, yes, and if they would have to wear penguin suits, also yes. Later, when the excitement had settled into the peaceful lull of new toys and Christmas movies, Nathaniel found Audrey in the kitchen, preparing dinner. "Happy?" he asked, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. She leaned back against him. "Very, though I'm still not entirely sure how we got here." "Two determined little boys had a plan," Nathaniel reminded her. "They found me in a lobby and changed everything." "They get that strategic thinking from you," she said, turning in his arms to face him. "The courage to actually do it, that might be from both of us." As they stood together in the kitchen, the sounds of their children's laughter drifting in from the living room, Nathaniel reflected on life's unexpected turns. How the most important meeting of his career had happened without an appointment, without preparation, without any warning at all. Two little boys had grabbed his hand and called him Dad, and in doing so, they had given him the only title that would ever really matter. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more tales of unexpected blessings and second chances. Share in the comments. What surprise changed the course of your life? Sometimes the most important meetings are the ones we never scheduled.